Hi, I'm Glenn from the Wells Vehicle Electronics Technical Services Department.
And I'm Dave.
And we're here to give you a little follow-up on a broadcast we started last time on ignition coils. So far we covered the basics on early design coils. And we've got a new addition to our lineup here, which is an HEI GM ignition coil. Dave, can you give us?
Well, we have a lot of calls. The reason we got this, we have a lot of calls on these. And you were going to explain
what are some of the calls we get on
Some of the calls that we get on these, basically they'll find an extra part on it and they don't know where to put it.
Okay, and that's usually concerning the ground strap. Yeah, this type of coil has a 3-wire connector that attaches to the distributor. That center terminal is your ground. And GM made two different designs. One used a ground wire and one used a ground strap. The ground wire attaches to the top of the coil, as you can see here in the photo. The ground strap goes under the coil. And a mistake that a lot of people often make is when they replace the distributor cap and transfer the coil from the old cap to the new cap, they forget to take that ground strap out and transfer that to the new cap. And regardless of whether it uses the metal strap or the wire ground, the center terminal has to have a ground connection to the frame of the coil. Otherwise that system will not work.
And then no spark.
Exactly.
No spark, nobody's
exactly.
happy. So basically a lot of the calls is, why don't I have spark?
Yeah, simple mistake, but
Yeah.
you have to make
Oh,
sure
yeah.
that that center terminal on that 3-wire connector is attached to something. It has to be grounded to the coil frame. Okay, and from HEI, ignition systems evolved to a distributorless type ignition, which uses a coil pack. What are some of the kind of calls we get on that?
Well, the main call I get on this is usually, how do I check the resistance on this one? And it's basically just like the other ones. You got the primary over here, and the secondary is across. You have to get a diagram to know which ones to go to. And the other issue that these coils have that I get calls on, occasional call I'll get is, my coil's burnt. Wow. And when they mean burnt, actually they'll melt the plastic down and there's really not even nothing left of them sometimes. And what's going on there, you got two issues that can happen there is, one, the spark plugs start getting such a large gap on them. That makes the on time of the coil longer, which causes heat. And that can even backfeed to the computer, and then the computer can have issues where it'll be causing these things to stay on too long. And you can usually have, sometimes you can even have a wire problem between the coil and wire, the terminal here, the primary, and the PCM, causing these things to stay on too long. Basic thing is, if they stay on too long, they're going to melt. And that's, so if you have a melted coil, make sure you check all those things out. Very important.
Okay, and from there we evolved to a coil on plug ignition type system, where there's a separate coil mounted to the top of each spark plug. The early designs here, I guess we can still test those with an ohm meter?
Yeah, still can. These just have 2 terminals on them. Just the primaries across the 2 terminals. And to do the secondary, you come from the either one of those will work. You go from there inside of here, and that'll be the secondary. Now, one issue is that these fit down inside the cylinder head. And there's a well there. That well is prone to getting any type of, can it get oil in there, moisture? Fords are really noted for moisture getting in there because they had a problem with a heater hose leaking up on top. And of course, if that happens, things ain't gonna be going good because you're gonna get spark jumping across. Sometimes these boots too will just get a bad spot in it. You can take them out and you'll see a burn hole in them.
Yeah, you always have to check for cracks or burn marks on the boot, sure.
And many of these coils will come along with a little pack of grease that you need to put on the bottom here. Make sure you do that because that's it's marine grease that protects.
Yeah, that'll help
keep the
contamination
moisture out. Right.
and corrosion out of the spark plug boot, right?
So that's the big issues with those.
Okay, then we evolved to our second generation coil on plug, which has actually a module built right into it.
Yeah, and because of that module, these can no longer be checked with primary and secondary ignition checks. So the reason you can usually tell that too when you get these off, there'll be more than just 2 wires in there.
Right, it'll either be a 3-pin or 4-pin
like
electrical
this particular
connector.
one. This is off of a 4.2 or a 3.5 General Motors. And you can see how much by having the module, it became a lot larger. And even help with the heat on these, they even got the fins on the top for dissipating the heat.
Sure, but it is a very bulky
Oh, yeah.
assembly.
Quite large.
And so from that style, we evolved to what they call a pencil coil.
Yep, here's a pencil coil. And these also, you can't do any
Yeah, that's got
resistance.
electronics built into
Yeah,
it also.
So
So there is no resistance
no
test
resistance
on that
at
one.
all. And the way they made these smaller, they actually, right down in here, they have the secondary coil windings. And those are actually down into the cylinder head. So obviously they get affected by a heat issue here. And that's one problem that they're having with these, almost to the point now where there's really not a lot of those being produced anymore. And they're kind of going back to these older styles.
And with any coil on plug ignition system, contamination in the spark plug well is always a problem, whether it be coolant, motor oil, condensation from an AC pipe, rainwater, anything that gets in those spark plug wells can lead to a misfire. If you suspect it is a faulty coil, the easiest way to pinpoint that would be to simply move the coil to a known good cylinder,
Right.
clear your diagnostic codes, drive the vehicle and see if the misfire follows the coil. If it does, well, naturally, the coil is your problem. Time to replace it.
And if not, you'll have to look at what other issues you can come up with, low compression,
Right,
bad
right.
injector, you know, all the other different
Yeah,
things.
a misfire
that
code
can
does
cause a
not
misfire.
necessarily mean it's ignition related. A misfire code can be fuel related or mechanical also. But as with any type of ignition system problem or misfire problem, spark plug maintenance is of paramount importance. That's something that gets overlooked more and more all the time. Anytime a spark plug gap is worn excessively, that ignition coil has to work harder to make the spark jump that gap. The harder that coil has to work, the more heat it's going to generate and the more prone it is to failure. So,
Yeah, it's kind of like a pyramid effect. One thing affects
right,
another.
right, a domino
Like
effect,
on this
sure.
coil here, it even goes all the way, can go all the way back and affect the computer.
Right, cause PCM problems. And that's another good issue. If you have a repeat failure on the same cylinder, then it's time to look at that PCM driver. It's a good possibility that the PCM could have been damaged by a faulty coil, which is usually caused by worn spark plugs.
All good. Good to know.
And the test diagrams and specifications for any of these coils that are testable are on our website, wellsve.com. They have wiring diagrams and specifications available. If you don't find what you're looking for there, that's what we're here for. You can reach us at 800-558-9770, option 1 for technical support.
And we'll be glad to help.
And we hope to see you again next time for Wells Counterpoint Live.